going on, Minnesota Viking fans? Welcome to the Purple People Podcast. It's finally here. Can you believe it? Sunday. This Sunday, September, what day? 10th, 9th, 8th? Whatever.
Sure.
This weekend. Yeah, sure. Football is back, baby. September 8th. I'm looking at the Vikings and Giants on ESPN.com. I was reading some odds, looking at some injuries. What's back? We're going to talk about the season opener today in episode 574, but my goodness, what a gem for podcasting and news. And if you like drama, what a gem that dropped this weekend. Adam sent it to us in the chat. Thank you, Adam. Oh my God. Mike Zimmer talked about his time with the Vikings, and nobody in the PR in Dallas or on his team was there to scoop in time to be like, hey, probably don't talk to them. And there was some stuff said that honestly just kind of left me speechless for a little bit. We always knew that Mike Zimmer had a prickly personality. Him and Kirk didn't get along. There were reports that he and Rick Spielman didn't get along, but man, this was a dicey one. Boys,
by the way, that's Kyle Smith. Just got done talking. I am Kyle West over here in my little square, and down below us, Adam Carlson. Thank you.
I'm at the bottom of the triangle.
You're our foundation, Adam. Don't ever forget that.
You are definitely the foundation. This interview with Mike Zimmer is potentially one of the wildest interviews I think I've ever read, particularly coming from his position as a former NFL head coach. You don't even hear this kind of stuff from players, let alone coaches who are still in a very prominent position in the league. I mean, he is the defensive coordinator for America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. It's insane, the stuff that he said in this interview. I respect the hell out of him for being honest. You don't have to agree with anything that he said in this at all, but he gave his side of it, and I will respect Mike Zimmer for that. The one thing I have to say, Mike, in podcast land, where were you 2 months ago when we had nothing to talk about? When we could have stretched this out for an entire month? How come you had to do this 4 or 5 days before the start of the regular season?
I just don't really understand why Zimmer did this at all. It's so outside his character. It came out of nowhere. I didn't think we'd ever see this.
And I don't understand. Like, he had to. There's nothing good that comes for his personality, like his PR, his publicity, any of that. Nothing good comes from this. And I understand he's already got a job. I think Dallas has really good top-end players. I don't know about their depth. I don't really care. I think Dallas's defense is fine, and he will coach the shit out of them. But why? This was such a bad idea, and it doesn't make it look good. And it only reaffirms that moving on from him and Spielman was the kind of the right thing. Now, I will say, before we all get into it and give our opinions, I don't think enough blame gets put on Rick Spielman for all this, because you hear from the coach all the time. I think he had some dog shit draft choices, and I think Zimmer was very right to be upset about them. But there is a certain tact about how you carry yourself and how you lead people, because at the end of the day, and this is going to be corny military coach speak, you're a leader of men, of grown adult men who are professional athletes. You have to carry yourself in a way, if you're a head coach, to where they can believe in you, buy into you, and they can ride into battle with you, metaphorically. When you're not meeting with your quarterback and your general manager and you're walking out of meetings and flying off the handle with your emotions.
Well, we're just going to have to go down the list of quotes here. We've both got the article pulled up, and I feel like we should just start from the top and go down through the whole thing here, Smith. But when you're talking about leaving you're not just talking about leaving meetings. We're talking about Rick Spielman drafted Kellen Mond, and Mike Zimmer was so pissed off, he left the building during the draft. Your head coach was just like, I'm done. I'm gone. I mean, there's going rogue, and that's like almost Antonio Brown levels of not giving a fuck and just getting out of there.
And then when I was reading about Zimmer, like the picks that happened when he wasn't there, Whew. Taking a bunch of backups when they had possible starters available.
We'll get to that too. Mike went so far in this interview. Why didn't he just come out and say the players that he would have drafted instead of the ones that Rick Spielman did draft? I mean,
Yeah, it's true. Like, and if you're going to call it out, he went that far. That would have been nice.
Who were your guys? Like, who would you have wanted? What were your options? What was your option? We know you didn't want Kirk. We'll get to that in a minute too. Who did you want? Like,
I saw it on Instagram today. He wanted to roll with Case Keenum, and they wanted to go upgrade to Kirk Cousins. That's what I read on Instagram today.
I never felt that way.
Yeah, I think there was always that control because Teddy was gone, and like this is just my opinion. I don't know if any of this is true, but remember, he was in love with Teddy because Teddy he was a game manager, and that's what he was good at, and he can make a play, and he was athletic enough. Get out of the pocket, you can scramble, whatever. But they wanted to run the ball. That's the problem with Zimmer is he was outclassed by the end of his tenure here so badly because he didn't want to advance and evolve with the league. He didn't evolve because his ego would not let him. We're going to run the football and play good defense. That shit doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that he wanted Keenum or he just didn't want Minnesota to use an early draft pick or a lot of the salary cap on a quarterback.
Adam, you're correct there. He did not want the salary cap space to go towards a quarterback. He recognized that the defense was maybe aging out a little bit and that they needed to address X, Y, and Z, and he wanted to spend that, and he knew that by spending so much money on a quarterback, that percentage of the salary cap, you were going to have to not spend money on your defense. Real quick about quarterbacks, I heard on another Vikings podcast I was listening to, and we all kind of knew this, that Zimmer really loved Teddy. He treated Teddy like another son, Teddy Bridgewater, and that injury was really devastating to Mike when he goes down with that non-contact injury. His knee blows up by all accounts. So that was really hard on Mike. And then I also heard that he was a big fan of Sam Bradford when the Bradford trade came in, and then he also had injuries, and that those two players going down was enough to sour prickly old Mike Zimmer on the quarterback position entirely. And at that point, he didn't want to invest in it and deal with it because I think that he was emotionally invested in Teddy. On the other show I was listening to, they were talking about how Mike Zimmer would actually like go down and help Teddy Bridgewater tie his shoes, like when he could not, going through rehab and everything too. So like that's how much Mike liked Teddy Bridgewater and felt for him. That's not fair to Kirk
or Kellen Mond.
or Kellen Mond or any of the other.
But Kellen Mond fucking sucks. And then he was not worth a third-round pick at all. And that's where the Rick Spielman blame. Because think about this, guys. Whether or not we all agree he should not have said that, even though it was hilarious and we named an episode after it. Think about this. If he's drafted in the 6th round, we don't give a shit about him. A 3rd-round pick. Dak Prescott was a 3rd-round pick, and look what he's doing. Like it matters to that. I can't believe they took him there, and I drank the Kool-Aid so hard. I was like, Chris Sims likes him. He'll be all right. He'll be fine. No,
I don't even think Kellen Mond is in the NFL. I don't even think he's a backup or a practice squad player.
It's a fair question. I couldn't tell you.
I really don't think he is.
I think last I heard he was in Cleveland, right?
He was in Cleveland, and they got rid of him. I don't think he's anywhere right now.
If you guys could tell me the last 2 teams after Cleveland, I will Venmo you $5.
Oh boy.
Buffalo Bills. Buffalo? No. Jacksonville?
Nope.
I have Chargers?
In 2023, practice squad on the Colts. 2024, practice squad member for the New Orleans Saints. And now he's a free agent. What a career he had. Pass completions, 2. Passing attempts, 3. 5 passing yards. Hell yeah.
All right.
Wild. Let's start at the top though, because this is the funniest one.
It.
So they talked to his daughter Corey. She said he's happy again, finally enjoying himself. Obviously, he took some time off after their son died, which was tragic. We're not going to talk shit about or make fun of that at all. His son died, and that's really tragic, especially after he's already suddenly lost his wife years ago. So he was very like,
and he had the eye issue.
Yeah, he damn near lost an eye too. Like he's been through the ringer. I'll give him that much.
I understand losing your wife and then especially losing your his son like that. That's two very tragic things that Mike Zimmer had to deal with. So probably
for him, football is all he has outside of his daughter and his grandsons now. So it's that would eat up a lot of time. But they asked me if I wanted to address the team when I got fired, and he said, "Hell no, they got me fired." That's number one. Hey, you just got canned. Say any words to the team before you leave? Hell no, they got me fired. I didn't know I was supposed to go to HR, sign out, whatever. No one told me. I just got all my stuff, got in my truck, and left. And he also said, I can tell you, this is how petty this man is. I have not watched one Minnesota game since.
Okay, I'll give him a pass on that one. Like if I was fired from a team, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to watch any of their football games either. I wouldn't give a shit. The fact that he seems to take no blame for how things ended in Minnesota is wild to me. That he's just immediately blaming all the players on the team. Like he just pointed a giant finger and said, "You all got me fired from this job."
Well, like we said in our group chat, I don't think he felt like that was his team anymore.
Yeah.
After the draft and Rick Spielman and all that, I don't think he felt like that was his team. And for a guy, one thing I will give Mike Zimmer is that he loves football. He loves it. And he showed that passion multiple times in his own way. But I don't think he had that new school mentality to be able to roll with any punches. I think he had that mindset that he wanted to be included in everything. And when Spielman kind of went around that, I think he felt really, like consulted by that.
Here's another great one in here too. And this is how the different perspectives, like Jonathan was saying in the chat, you can be on either side. You can defend him or you can hate on him, or you can kind of be somewhere in the middle where I'm kind of at. It doesn't matter. These are just the facts. And we want to point out the interesting parts. So he says, I was always demanding of my players. Losing didn't make me happy. Was I too hard? One meeting towards the end of 2021, when everyone was saying I was going to get fired, I pulled everyone together and said, let's talk about the elephant in the room, fellas. What happened was, it says in the article here, Zimmer defended his record, all the adversity that he had to deal with, from Adrian Peterson's indictment 5 days after Zimmer's victorious head coaching debut to Teddy Bridgewater's knee exploding in a non-contact practice, and then multiple eye surgeries. The speech left players dumbfounded. So he's trying to tell them. What's that?
We had heard about this. This had leaked out from players, I believe, after he was fired. I remember from the player perspective, I think a lot of them felt that it was very odd that he pulled the team in, and instead of kind of doing a, hey, let's rally together, let's be tough, we're all in this together kind of speech, kind of did a, hey, look at everything I've been through, look at all the shit that I've been through. He's not wrong. That's just an odd thing for your leader to say. I know I'm in management, Smith. I know you've been in management. You've been in the military. That's typically it's not at all a thing that someone who's in charge of other people does. You don't pull your staff together and say, hey, look at all the shit that I'm dealing with right now. Like that's kind of your job to deal with that and the stress that comes with it. Also, the most stressful part of football is playing the game. You can game plan all day long, but you're not the one putting your body on the line and doing like that. That made no sense to me to say, hey, we understand that's going on, but talking about it. That's exactly right. Exactly right. He got everyone together to tell him it's not his fault. It's your fault. And that's not a good leader. You don't do that. Even if it is their fault, even when I do have employees that fuck up at work and don't do their job right, like, you don't pull a meeting and go, hey, this is everyone else's fault but mine. Like, you're supposed to help you correct them with it. That's what a good leader is supposed to do.
Here's some for the visual audience, everybody tuning in live. This is a quote from the article. Chris Boyd, he says something about me. I'm like, dude, you had more special teams penalties than anyone I can remember. Now, this was very interesting because Chris Boyd heard about this, and then he went on social media, and he was kind to Zimmer. Again, he goes, man, you didn't have to call me out like that. I still got love for you even now. And I'm paraphrasing, but he was very nice about it. And I was just like,
where's Chris Boyd? Where's Chris Boyd currently employed?
Yeah, I don't know if he's on a team, but he was a lot of fun.
He wants that job in Dallas.
Yeah. Here's the thing too. We talked about this. Shout out to my buddy Mike. Go follow him on Twitter, Mike Castellino. He's our Canadian Vikings fan up in Buffalo, New York. We talked about this. Mike was fired up. He was definitely shitting on Zimmer the entire time. And it's so funny because in the article here, they mentioned later, I'm kind of jumping around, but because of that random playoff win on the road against the Saints, he said, I screwed up and won a game and accidentally got extended. And that was pretty much the last of the really good football.
That's the point that Adam was trying to make too, is that after that season, I don't believe that Mike Zimmer felt that it was still his team, that he essentially lost control of it, and that's probably why he was so salty towards the players.
By the way, right now, Chris Boyd is a member of the Houston Texans.
Good for him.
Oh, there you go. I did not know that.
It's nice to hear that these players are still around, especially, if they're still young enough to be in the league. That's cool. Yeah. He was always fun. Like you might not be the best dude, but God, he would take over in those like riddles after practice.
Oh,
when
yeah.
they would show the riddles. Or
yeah.
They had him holding the boom mic a couple times. He was so much fun. Like, that's an infectious personality in the locker room.
One of the major things for me about Zimmer is I really am still firmly in the camp that he wanted to be head coach, but didn't really have much interest whatsoever in the offensive side of the ball, or a lick of interest in special teams.
Yeah. But and we discussed this in our private chat too, Adam. It's okay if you're a defensive minded head coach. You want to spend your time on defense, particularly defensive backs. That's your specialty. That's what you want to do. It's okay to not be as invested on offense, but Zimmer never wanted to let his offensive coordinator run that side of the ball. He didn't want to have anything to do with it, but he still wanted to micromanage that side of the ball, and you can't do that.
I mean, he did chase some young offensive coordinators out. You're not running the ball enough.
Yeah.
After Kirk, they had a great game where Kirk throws the ball a ton, and they win the game. He's bitching at John DeFilippo about not running the ball, and it's like, dude, you won. You don't have to go about it this way.
And we still don't know what happened with Norv Turner.
that is what I want to learn.
Yeah,
because with him being around for so long, he probably gave him the finger and was like, "I'm out. I don't have to listen to this bullshit." This one's interesting. I tried to paste it in a comment, but it broke it up. I guess it's too long. Terrence Newman, who played into like 2015 and 2016 with the Vikings, he was like 39. We knew he was one of Zimmer's favorite players. Still good at a very high level.
He played. Terrence Newman played good football for the Vikings.
And was he the coaching for a year or two or something like that?
Yeah, I believe so. We saw him on the sidelines at least for a year.
Yeah.
So we know that Zimmer brought him in, and he had experience with him in Cincinnati, and it's always fun to see like in Dallas, Linval Joseph signed, Dalvin Cook signed, Eric Kendricks is there, right? I believe.
Yep.
So he's got some former Viking players in their heyday. Like, that's going to be cool to reunite with a coach that you had, but Zimmer says, that one hurt me bad. Terrence was like my son. I called Parcells about that one. I called Terrence, and he said, well, that's how I felt. I said, look, we're done. So you can't take criticism, and you can't take ownership either. And it's so wild.
For as long as him and Terrence Newman were friends, I can't believe that Mike Zimmer, you couldn't just call him on the phone and hash it out and then just water under the bridge. Like you're gonna hold that big of a grudge that you're just like, nope, 20-year friendship, nope, I'm done. I'm done with it.
Well, it's been the same thing with Spielman, according to that article. I mean, he said Spielman's reached out with some texts and Zimmer just isn't responding.
I don't understand that. You're going to die miserable and alone acting that way to people. And the wild part is you're a part of such a small group of people in the entire world. How many people can say, yeah, I played football professionally in the NFL. Hey, I coached in the NFL. And then it gets smaller when you talk about success. Hey, you know, my head coaching record was like 70 something and 56 or whatever it was. There was a gap. And then, yeah, I won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys as the cornerbacks coach. Like he can say he's a Super Bowl champion coach.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen when Jerry Jones drafts Deion Sanders' kid and it's a package deal? Here comes Deion to coach defense in Dallas, and all of a sudden Mike Zimmer is stepping aside or having to deal with.
He would love that because they're actually friends. They would love that.
Are they? Or is Mike Zimmer going to hold a grudge against Deion Sanders because he's coming in and going to take over part of the defensive duties there in Dallas next year too?
I don't know if the Cowboys don't make the NFC Championship game. I don't think he or Mike McCarthy are going to be employed there next year, anyways. Yeah. So, which is stupid. I think Jerry Jones is hilarious.
Yeah,
you just paid CeeDee Lamb. You waited all this time to pay CeeDee Lamb, which you're not working on chemistry with the team, and it could have been way cheaper than it was now if you'd have done it months ago. And then still hasn't paid Dak, still hasn't paid Micah Parsons. It's like, you're the owner. You're not a general manager. Just go make your billions and have your ATM give you lots of money and let somebody come in and win you a championship.
Here's the thing, though. We were talking about how the Vikings probably should have let go of Mike Zimmer after that Saints game and just went in a different direction. Mm-hmm. Here's why I'm glad they didn't, because if they would have kept if they would have fired Mike Zimmer and brought in another head coach, Doug Peterson. Let's just go with Doug Peterson. Say they bring him in. We probably still have Rick Spielman as our general manager, and I wouldn't have wanted Rick Spielman to continue to stick around with the Vikings. I think that it was good that they did a full house cleaning and moved on and just new head coach, new general manager, new thought process all around. Because like you said, Smith, part of this blame, at least half the blame, has to go to Rick Spielman as well.
This is hilarious. Barely spoke to each other in 2021. Haven't spoken since. I walk in before the draft, and Rick is watching quarterback interviews from the combine. Zimmer says he hadn't told me anything. Normally, he always kept me abreast of everything, and he and I were really always good until they weren't. The first round, Rick tried to trade up for Justin Fields, who hasn't done anything.
Pause. We have to pause. Bullet dodged on that one. I am so glad we didn't get Rick Spielman. And this is where I love Mike Zimmer's honesty of him being like, you know what? He hasn't done shit. That's amazing. That's so good.
Outside of this one flash in the pan, to be proven, to be determined season from the only Ohio State quarterback that's been worth the shit ever. You don't draft Ohio State quarterbacks. That's like the rule. And CJ Stroud might be the outlier, but it's hilarious. They tried to trade up for Justin Fields.
This is why we needed to get rid of Rick Spielman. Like trying to trade up for Justin Fields.
With 4 third-round picks, Spielman selected in order: Kellen Mond, Chaz Surratt, Wyatt Davis, and Patrick Jones II. The only one that's around right now on the team, and this is just from a few years ago, is Patrick Jones. Everybody else is somewhere else or out of football.
And that was after Mike Zimmer left, right? Those were the
those are the ones that he was not consulted on.
Yeah. It says here, when he picked Mond, I walked out of the room. I left the building. I didn't even talk to him on the phone.
That's why.
Rick Spielman says, "You mad at me?" He said, "Yeah, I think you took 4 backups when we had guys I thought were starters." And said, from that time on, it just kind of got worse between us. And I'm not saying nothing was my fault. I'm sure there were plenty of things that were my fault. So he did take ownership in one part of this interview, but
I want to know who the 4 guys were that like who would Mike Zimmer have wanted? And
this is the best one so far. I keep forgetting this because there's so much information.
There's so many good ones. I love him. I love him walking out on the draft. That is like an all-time fuck you move.
People made a big deal out of me saying that after the game, I didn't need to see more of Mond. I saw him every day in practice. Maybe I was omniscient or something. He played 3 NFL snaps and 2 were bad. Holy shit, dude. Holy shit. He did not have to say any of this stuff.
I want that on a t-shirt. I want that on a t-shirt. Just that quote with Kellen Mond's face on it. That's so good. Poor guy. You feel for Kellen Mond because he didn't ask for any of this.
He's just catching strays over here.
So many. We were averaging 10 wins a year, playing really good defense with some other quarterbacks who weren't as talented as Kirk, Zimmer says. Then we paid Kirk a lot of money and ended up having to get rid of some guys on defense, and we weren't able to get ones we needed. Now you can play that argument all day long.
Yes.
You can do that to a T. That's fine. I hear him on that. But that's where being a coach is important.
Tell me your solution. I want to know what was your solution as the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Hey,
well, I think his solution is in there. He wants those defensive players, and he wants quality defensive players, and he does not care if he sacrifices a quarterback to get there.
Had he been progressive enough and they had drafted the right way, just basically if everything would have been the complete opposite, they could have they could have been the San Francisco 49ers according to how his vision was. Get a bunch of studs on defense, build the trenches, and you can just go get a 7th round guy. You can go get White Teddy Bridgewater, and it works fine.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that. And part of that obviously goes on Rick. Like, I can't believe I'm still in shock. He traded away picks to get Kellen Mond. That's wild.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's weird.
I thought I heard that Mike Zimmer did not want Case Keenum in Minnesota. So if you didn't want Case and you didn't want Kirk, someone has to be out there playing quarterback for you. Like, who do you want? Like, that's where I was getting at. Like, what was your solution? Like,
I don't know, and I don't have any insight. I don't think that he didn't want Case. I think Bradford was probably his dude. It's probably why he didn't want to keep naming the starter if he could bring Bradford back. And that's my biggest what if. I'll say that on the podcast until I'm not on here anymore. If I could go back in time, I would give Sam Bradford like the strongest knees the world have ever seen. He threw one of the prettiest footballs I've ever seen in my life.
It's true.
Super accurate.
Yeah.
Super accurate. And if you watch those games where he was on fire, like against Green Bay and the Saints, I think years apart, 2017 opener, 2016 home opener, the inaugural game, dude, he tore those defenses apart. And I think he's fine with Case, but if anything, he would have endorsed him later if he didn't have to pay them as much. I mean, you see that by drafting Teddy. Teddy was the 32nd overall pick.
But welcome to modern NFL football.
True.
Like you said, you have to adapt with the times. I know you want to build a massive star-studded defense and run the football. You also have to pay a quarterback something. It's the 49ers are the exception of the rule in having Brock Purdy that you're paying absolutely nothing to play football for your team and win right now. Like, that doesn't really happen.
This is hilarious. Adder says we can blame the refs. I'm not calling OPI. Yeah, that was hilarious. He said it somewhere up here. He's like, I screwed up and won a game and kind of kept the job. So that's kind of what happened. I think after 2018, after going to the NFC Championship game and then failing to make the playoffs with a definite upgrade at talent quarterback, and then your defense drops off too, because it says here in 2017 they had I always lost my spot. Yeah, weeks 2017 number 1 defense in points and yards allowed, and then you go into 2018, which was like a 500 season. That sucks. You could have had a case to fire him then, but they didn't because you extended him because of a playoff win, which I kind of understand. Like, they weren't supposed to win that game. I know that was the miracle year after. Yeah, so that we wouldn't even have had that year if you came off the miracle season in 2017 and then you don't make the playoffs. There's a case to fire him after then. But it's really weird. There's 2 seasons too many, I think, after that 2019 season. You have to extend him when they win a playoff game, but my God, if you knew it was this toxic in there, like
the Wilfs, Mark and Ziggy Wilf are partially at blame for all of this too, because when they hired Mike Zimmer, you kind of know he's got a shelf life because there's a reason why all these other teams had passed on him for all that length of time at being a head coach, even though he was qualified to be one. You knew he had a very strong personality and that he was eventually going to rub people the wrong way. So when you brought him in, you really needed to make sure that you were monitoring that whole situation. And they weren't, and they let it get way out of control with him and Rick Spielman. And it doesn't appear that they knew it was that bad until after the fact. And that's when they fired both of them.
Well, I'm still not sure they were fully intended on firing both of them. I think Mike Zimmer was on his way out the door, and he might have said something in his exit that did something to throw Spielman under the bus a little bit more. Because I really think the Wilf family has a lot of respect for Rick Spielman, but I think they were talking with Zimmer, and a lot of the stuff Zimmer probably said was enough to make them say, okay, we need to just clean house.
Yeah, you had to make that move. You had to start over fresh. You just had to clear just all of that out of the building and to get us where we're at now.
It'd be interesting to know if that was their full intention at the end of that season, was to get rid of the head coach and general manager, if it was just Zimmer on the chopping block.
I think we were all pretty shocked that Rick Spielman got let go. So
Zimmer wasn't really surprising.
Yeah, no, that one wasn't.
When you come out and say not particularly, like we knew that shit was about to happen.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's an interesting read. It's all out on Twitter.
By the way, shout out to the Minnesota Star Tribune for that one, because that hit out of nowhere. It is behind a paywall, so if you want to read it, you will probably need to pay for an article.
But all the quotes are out on social media at this point too. So if you look for it, you can find it.
It's all out on Twitter. I don't know whether it makes me like necessarily hate the guy even more. It does leave a sour taste. It leaves you disappointed. You know, when your parents aren't mad at you, they're just disappointed. I don't understand the purpose of all of this and why, if they called him, he could have easily said, I'm not talking about that shit. I've got to go coach a defense in Dallas. So I'm not sure if this is like just happened or it's been sitting for a little bit.
Is it therapeutic in a way for Mike Zimmer to I'm letting all this shit go, and maybe he feels he can move on from it at this point.
Zimmer did say he didn't know if he'd be interested in another head coaching opportunity. He didn't even know if there would be one for him.
Yeah, I don't think he has to worry about that.
Yeah, no. I don't think he's...
But I'll say what I've always said. I think Zimmer is a fantastic defensive coordinator. He's an old school guy. But I think head coaching was a bit much for him.
Yeah, I would agree.
If Leslie Frazier, who by all accounts is a fantastic human, I've never heard anyone say a negative about Leslie Frazier.
Did you
as
ask
a human being? No. But if he doesn't get another shot as a head coach in the NFL, I can't imagine that Mike Zimmer, after all of this, another team is going to sign up for that.
You got to read the room too. Like now there's 30-some-year-old head coaches now, and it's all offensive, which is the polar opposite of him. He's 68 years old and loves defense, and he's crusty. None of these college players that are already millionaires coming in want to deal with that, and the owners don't want that either. They need things to be a smooth environment. And, you know, coming from a guy like myself who thinks, hey, the world is a little soft now, I'm 100% on the player's side and against him on this one, to be like, yeah, there's a line that you can't really cross, and he has no problem stepping over it with 2 fingers in the air and like, here I am, what are you going to do about it? Because
my biggest frustration point with this is that I understand from his perspective why he did not want Kirk Cousins. I respect the fact that he did not want to spend the money. He wanted to build his defense. once it's done and once it's in the building, you cannot take it out on Kirk that he's there and that he's playing on that contract. It was never Kirk Cousins' fault. Okay. Zimmer seemed to act like Kirk was the bad guy in like a cartoon with the big mustache twirling it, twirling his mustache like an evil villain. That it's like he was going to come into the Minnesota Vikings and he was going to screw over Mike Zimmer with this big, huge contract and screw over the team's defense. That was never, you don't put that on Kirk. And it makes me wonder if he would have been treated better and if they would have built the team more around Kirk Cousins. What's that outcome? Did the Vikings waste Kirk Cousins in his prime? Could you have won more football games with him, with a head coach that would have been on the same page? Probably.
Well, when you bring in a quarterback like Kirk Cousins to an offense that Minnesota was running, which was running the ball, it really is a bad fit. And I think that communication between Spielman to bring in a quarterback that's a solid passer and doesn't offer a lot of mobility or, quarter pocket awareness, really, for that matter, bringing him into this offense didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I like it.
Nobody was on the same page.
No.
And if they could have got on the same page, what? I wonder what that outcome would have been.
So switching to this, I'm trying to remember what Adam was saying. You wanted my thoughts on something here, and we were talking about over-unders, and you were like, even Denver, something like that. What was your question you wanted to ask?
The power rankings have been coming out for a lot of places lately, and I want to say it's Pro Football Talk released theirs.
Yes.
And they have the Denver Broncos and the New Orleans Saints rated better than the Minnesota Vikings, and I don't really understand that.
Saints I don't understand because I don't think Dennis Allen is a good coach, and I don't believe in Derek Carr. And all of the guys that we used to fear when you played the Saints, like Alvin Kamara would eat, Michael Thomas would eat. Those guys are old, they're not there anymore. So I don't really know.
And I like Olave, and I like some of the guys the Saints have, but I don't feel overall their roster is anywhere near as competitive as Minnesota's. I know you can say like Sam Darnold is going to hold the offense back, and I have yet to see that happen, but I can understand why people might think that.
I think that's the majority.
Is that what it is? Is people sleeping on Sam Darnold? Is that why Minnesota is so low in these?
Yes, people do not believe in Sam Darnold, and I think they're looking solely, which is based on his career. I understand it, but people, I think, are solely looking at Sam Darnold and going, he is not going to be capable of leading the Vikings to anything. And to be fair, they don't really have, with JJ McCarthy now on IR for the season, there's not really a backup that you believe that's going to come in that's going to light the league up underneath him. So I get why they're so
defensive team. Other than like a few guys that you might want to swap out in the future there on the defensive line, that defense has a lot of talent. A lot of guys are very good. People are sleeping on that Vikings defense.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very, very solid unit. And for the team on offense, man, so long as you got Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison and,
and
Naylor's looking good.
Like Aaron Jones is so washed that he's not worth having.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. I'm worried about his ability to stay healthy. I don't know if he's going to stay healthy the full season. My gut tells me probably not. He's probably going to miss a stretch of games for Minnesota, but they look like they're going to be a competent offense out there too. I think that Sam Darnold, he's smart. He knows this is his last opportunity to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He has to take advantage of it. If he has anything in him, he's going to maximize this year for the Vikings. This is his shot. This is his last shot.
But let's be honest, all three of us would rather have Minnesota sitting at, I think they were at 26th on the power rankings. We'd rather have them there than, Detroit's in third and the Packers were in, or Detroit was in second and the Packers were in third. So, when you're in a position where you can only really go down, I think the Packers and the Lions are going to have a great season, but putting them above the 49ers? Really?
Yeah, it's tough.
I was kind of like being in that underdog position too, Adam.
Yeah, I'd rather prove people wrong than prove people right.
Right.
I don't, and I mean this when I say like whoever's playing for the team, I'm going to watch Sunday with full intent and full, attention. Sam Darnold hasn't done anything in his career to prove that he's going to do it. And the thing that I don't like the most I would rather have Jay Cutler 2.0, a guy that I know is going to we have that on the team. We have Diet Jay Cutler and Nick Mullins. He's going to throw the ball. It probably to the other team a few times, but I know he's not scared to play. When I hear the quote, I'm seeing ghosts, and I see Sam Darnold in practice when people are around, throw a pick, and then just sulking afterwards. It's like, brother, it happens. Pick yourself up and be determined to play better the next play. I don't believe in this dude whatsoever. And I think we're going to have a top 10 pick next year. If you want to be completely honest about it, I think this team's going to be held back majorly by him. What I want to see happen is to have the Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith renaissance of the last 2 years consecutively, but nothing in his career has suggested that that's going to be close. And the only thing that gives me optimism is this coach making it easy enough to be like, look, dude, just drive the car and don't run into the ditch.
So are you with Charlie Walters? Walters, they're saying if Minnesota gets the top 5 pick next year, they should take another quarterback?
That guy's a fucking idiot, and no.
When will people stop listening to him?
Stop listening to him. Stop reporting him, first of all. And the other thing is, this was a quarterback heavy draft. That's not a quarterback heavy draft next year. Somebody's going to overpay for Deion's son, which is stupid. The guy from Texas, maybe, but you have an investment in McCarthy. Whatever. He had a red shirt.
Everything we've seen from McCarthy looks good, and the kid looks like he's continuing to take a step forward every time you see him. Even in the middle of a preseason game, it's like, oh, he didn't look so hot, and then he's improving as the game goes on. How often does that happen? Should have gotten the corpse of Russell Wilson. Yeah.
Hey, he fooled my ass.
Vikings fans out there would say, we need Russell Wilson, we need Justin Fields, we need what was the Malik
Neighbor? Or no, not Malik Neighbor. It was Malik Willis.
Malik Willis.
There we go.
They thought he was a first-round pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy that Vikings fans don't run the team.
Yeah, like I said, I root for everyone. I truly do hope Sam Darnold has success because that'll be a great comeback story. But nothing in the way have I seen that proof that that's going to be what. And the math alone says from any player, if you've been bad for 5 years, you're probably not going to be awesome in your 6th. And we need awesome to be competitive. What I don't want to see is, and this happened today. I forget. I think it was Bill Simmons. I watched his podcast today, and they talk a lot about betting, not necessarily for fantasy, but just going through each team in each division. And we are a surefire bet from everyone out in the media to come in last in the NFC North. I don't know if Chicago should be as high as they are praising, but their quarterback
Chicago has made a lot of good moves.
Yeah,
they're going to be improved. Caleb Williams, I mean, he's not started, and he's done preseason, but he hasn't started an NFL game yet against a big boy defense that's disguising coverage and is going to blitz the fuck out of you. Like,
I'm not sure Chicago could have done much more to help him out, though, with supporting cast.
They
really brought in a ton of good offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of his wide receivers right now is great.
And for the wide receivers, to echo your point, Adam, at every point in their career, you have everything you need. It's not like you have two guys in their prime. Like, let's say we had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. They would argue over who should get the ball more. Keenan Allen is the aging vet who can be a solid number 2. I think DJ Moore is clearly the number 1 wide receiver there right now because he's in his prime and he's fucking good. He's one of those receivers that had to overcome dog shit quarterback play in Carolina. And then you draft the rookie sensation. They have a weapon at every level and their tight end's okay. I think Chicago's going to be fine, but everybody's like writing them off to be like, there's going to be 3 playoff teams from the NFC North. I'm like, pump the fucking brakes on Chicago.
And the biggest thing is that I think people are not talking about Chicago upgrading on the offensive line enough because last season their offensive line was terrible.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that to like give credit to Justin Fields because Fields, I don't know if he would have excelled more with better offensive line play. I'm not completely sold there, but I do feel like Chicago is doing what they can to help out their young quarterback.
I agree. They did say on Bill Simmons' podcast today, just doing bet lines. They're like over under at I think 6.5, and they said I'm heavy betting the under. He goes, I don't think this Vikings team. He said I think this Vikings team starts out 0-7 or 1-6.
Oh,
yeah, dude.
There's no way, dude. None. You can. I don't care who your quarterback is. You can fuck it. Justin Jefferson's out there somewhere that ball, and you're gonna win at least 3 of those games.
But they do realize that Minnesota's playing against Danny Dimes in week 1.
Well, here's the thing. If they do lose and start off 0-1 against the Giants, like what gives you confidence that you're going to beat the 49ers?
Right.
You know what gives me confidence? It's the Vikings. We would be the team that would lose against the Giants and then beat the 49ers week 2.
Listen to this. Listen to this
gauntlet a couple
of
years
games.
ago when the Vikings were like 20 points favorites over the Bills and ended up losing by like 40.
That was the Josh Allen hurdle game over Anthony Barr, and it pissed me off so bad. Listen to this gauntlet of games, though. This is
how do you guys remember this stuff? My memory is just like
PTSD, Kyle.
Gone.
They're all there. I can tell you why we lost each game too, and I wish I couldn't.
COVID, I'm serious. COVID like shot my short-term memory. I can be like, oh yeah, 2009 Minnesota Vikings, Percy Harvin, blah 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 blah. You ask me what happened last year, I'm like, I don't know. Let me look it up.
Okay, so listen to this gauntlet of games. This is so crazy. So you start off the week, obviously, week 1 so you're on the road in New York. I think that's a coin flip game.
That's a win.
In New Jersey, I'll correct you there.
Yeah. Always, sorry. I think that's a win. I think that's a coin flip game for me because I don't know anything about Sam Darnold, and this offensive line is fine at tackle. Everything else, I'm not sure. Dexter Lawrence, if you guys forget about the playoff game, was in Kirk Cousins' lap every other play, and they added Brian fucking Burns to that, along with their other good pass rush. So the defense is going to be fine, and that whole argument of, well, they don't have any skill players. Malik Neighbors is fucking good at football, man.
They unretired a jersey number for Malik Neighbors. They believe in him.
So I think that's why it's a toss-up. I don't believe in Daniel Jones. You guys know this, but it's an away game to start. It might be rough, and it's going to be sloppy. The over-under for the game for total points is 41.5. So that should tell you how low they think this game is going to be. But listen to this gauntlet. At the Giants, home for San Fran and Houston, 2 playoff teams that won last year, one in the Super Bowl. At Green Bay, won a playoff game. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, that New York Jets roster alone, dude, holy shit. They should have no excuse not to go to the playoffs
Breece Hall,
and win a game.
I love me some Breece Hall out there. So, yeah, that's a potent
Gotta put some sauce on it.
There you go. Good job, Adam. That's 5. Week 7, because you have the bye week of 6. Detroit, I don't think we're better than them. At LA on a Thursday night, the Rams, I don't like that at all. Indy, they won. They almost went to the playoffs.
I'm a lot less scared of the Rams without Aaron Donald.
That's true. Yeah. I could see that.
Rams don't scare me as Matthew Stafford don't scare me as much anymore.
And I don't know what the Cup Puka Nakua kind of situation is going to be there.
That's true.
Fantasy football people have no idea how to draft those guys. It's wild to watch that.
And here's a weird one. So that's Indy. And then Sunday, November 10th, the 17th, and the 24th, that 3-week span, 3 games, all on the road at Jacksonville, at Tennessee, at Chicago. The only one that I look at that I feel like remotely confident we have a chance to win is Arizona because it's at home. And I don't know how that team's going to be. All these other ones I don't like. Atlanta, I think they're a better team than the Vikings. Chicago, that'll be a toss-up. It'll be interesting to see how we play Chicago. At Seattle, right before Christmas, when it's cold and wet, I hate that. Green Bay, and then at Detroit for the end of the year. Dude, I hate to say it. We're going to have a top 10 draft pick next year. I am fully – until you can pull me out of the fire in believing that, I don't know how you could convince me we're going to win all these games. But you know what? To do the thing that I always try to do to be fair, every year there are 3 or 4 teams that surprise the absolute shit out of you. And I'm not saying the Vikings are going to go on some win streak, but there are going to be some winning teams on this San Francisco, Houston, Green Bay, Detroit, LA, who made it last year? Jacksonville. Atlanta's got a lot of hype. 2 or 3 of these teams the Vikings play are going to underperform like crazy and disappoint their fan base.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing real quick that I want to say is that when you look at some of these games, particularly early in the season, okay, I love the Texans. I like their quarterback, CJ Stroud. He's an excellent young quarterback. It is early in the season, okay? So that means there's not going to be much tape on what Brian Flores is going to be doing on defense for them to study. What can he throw at CJ Stroud? What can he do to confuse and get after this quarterback? Brian
Just
Flores.
Let Stephon Diggs do his thing. You're all set.
Yeah. The poison pill, Stephon Diggs. Will he be at play?
Team captain, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. Don't let him near your daughters. But no, like I do believe that the Vikings are going to have a really good defense, and that's going to allow them to be in a lot of these games, particularly early in the season.
I'm glad you said that, Kyle. Please go watch the top 100 video for Harrison Smith. Harrison Phillips was on there and said for 10 weeks last year, the Vikings had the number 1 defense. I would like the stats on that, sir. Who told you that? I don't believe you. I don't believe you one bit that it was 10 weeks.
Was it?
Because it wasn't the first 3 games.
They did hold the Raiders to 0 points.
I would like to know if it was after week 3 when you had 12 turnovers on the team for 3 games. After that
game against the Raiders is one of the rare times I was at work and I did not watch the replay. I didn't watch it.
It was one of the times you were mad that we won.
Well, yeah, that too.
That game still doesn't feel like a win, even after this time.
Remember when I brought that up last year, how the dog shit second half of the season, that was the only win out of like 8 games or 7 games, and it was a 3-0 win, and that was it. That's it. In the year was a bunch of close losses and 1 field goal game. Wild, man. I got it right here. Let me look at that one more time. Let's get angry again. Yeah. From November 19th all the way to January 7th, they had 1 win. So they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses and 1 win in the last 7 games. Oh, and that before that, they were on a 5-game win streak. This team, dude. Good Lord.
But no, even, I look at that Colts game. Okay. I love Anthony Richardson. Great quarterback. Haven't seen too much from him. What can Brian Flores do to confuse him and keep him off his game? Probably quite a bit. I believe in Brian Flores. I believe in that defense. I think that alone is enough to keep you in that football game. And can Sam Darnold manage enough of a game if you have a top 5 defense out there? Can he manage the game around it? Just don't turn over the ball.
Even if you don't believe in Sam Darnold, do you believe in Kevin O'Connell to make plays in situations for him to succeed? That's where I'm at, is that I may have the jury out on Sam Darnold, but I do think Kevin O'Connell is a smart enough coach and knows enough about quarterbacking to make things as easy as possible on Sam Darnold.
Yes. Wade Phillips, not Wade Phillips. What the hell's his son's name that's with the team?
Wes Phillips.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Wade Wilson.
Don't forget, he knows a thing or two about coaching as well too. And they've got a solid staff.
Dude, you're just setting up the alley-oops for me today. So this is the thing on the Bill Simmons show that I listed today. So go check that out if you want. They're doing the over-under for every team and picking all that stuff if you're a betting person. But they said that one of the reasons they don't like Minnesota, they said they've had one of the noisiest off seasons you could think of. He's like, and you could just go backwards. Your boy wonder quarterback you drafted 10th overall tears his knee up. That's kind of devastating. Jordan Addison gets arrested. Their offensive coordinator had an arrest. One of your players dies, and now floating around and still pretty hot off the press is all the Brian Flores. So he goes, "What the fuck is Minnesota doing?" And I was like, "Oh, Bill, you just got to follow every year, man. It's a whole show in and of itself."
This was a quiet off season. I don't know what he's
nobody's
talking
going
about.
to Lake Minnetonka.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, he mentioned all that, and I was like, "Yeah, we kind of just breezed through that because we're used to it."
Yeah,
but they were all like, "What the fuck are the Vikings doing this year?" I'm like, "This is every year, Bill. What do you mean?"
That's nothing for us. That's nothing.
This is light work.
We're all shell shocked, traumatized from this fucking franchise.
So I brought it up. I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer before we go through. Let's do a prediction before we get out of here. Do you guys think the Vikings will win their first game in New Jersey this Sunday against the Giants?
I'm going to give you my
Getting a
answer.
win.
I'm going to give you my answer in the form of a Vikings win.
I don't want to do if they play good, they'll win. My gut says that the Vikings will squeak out a win for this because the offense has looked good so far. So for all the reasons you listed, Kyle, I don't believe in Daniel Jones, and I want solely to believe in Sam Darnold. I am most excited this season to watch Aaron Jones. Because
wouldn't
guess
it be
what?
something if Minnesota lost this game with a Will Reichert missed field goal?
Oh, Adam.
Wouldn't that be right on par?
Adam.
Thank you. Fuck you. Bye. Boom.
Incredible.
Don't even
good all
jinx us.
preseason and training camp comes out, misses the big one.
Andrew, it's hilarious you did this because we had this up earlier. I didn't do the graphic, but the over-under for the game right now from ESPN and all the betting is 41.5. So you're perfectly on line to do exactly what they bet on. That's hilarious.
Now, before we kick off, I do want to touch on that we are not going to be doing the Survival League this year. I know it's a lot of fun, but I am a very broke boy, and I can't afford to do much for it. So if you guys want to invite us to like some survival leagues or something like that, have at it, but we won't be running one this year.
Yeah, I apologize to anyone in the last 2 years. I got lazy and I have terrible memory, and I sent gifts out later, but way later than I was supposed to. I don't want to do that anymore, and I don't think you should fault me or be angry with me for that. It's fun to do it with a prize. It's not as much fun if you don't win anything. I have quit fantasy football altogether. I did outside of I did the Survival League last year, I believe. I didn't do any fantasy football last year. I don't want to do any kind of thing anymore. I'm going to let the Vikings determine my happiness solely. So you guys pray for me on that.
You're like how West be in all the fantasy leagues, all of them.
I can't do it. I don't want to anymore. I get angry. I get angry because
I've never played.
And every year outside of the year where it's boom or bust, like I had two seasons where I won, 2 seasons where I came in second or third, but there's been a slew of the last 10 years where I draft what I think is well, and then one of my major key players always gets hurt, and I'm just like, but of course they fucking did. So
all right, so the season kicks off Thursday. Was it Chiefs and someone?
Baltimore.
And, Baltimore Ravens.
Yep.
And then on Friday we get that Brazil game with Eagles and Packers.
Couldn't give a shit less. I hope they both have a tie.
Yeah.
So at least we got some football coming up, and then of course Sunday we got some fun games coming. So we got football ahead of us, guys. This is great.
College football Saturday. So yeah, it's football season, boys.
There's no doubt about it. I am ready to be hurt again. There it is. Yeah.
Now Jordan Addison did return to practice.
Nice.
So that's good news. He should be ready to go for the regular season, but I also don't know if he has any legal stuff coming up that might put him at risk of suspension, because I don't know when his hearing and all that is.
Haven't heard, so
it's sometime in October. I do remember reading that.
So I wouldn't expect any disciplinary action until that happens.
Yep. When you're in the playoffs, but all the NFL teams are resting, that, or when you've been killing it all year, and then when the fantasy playoffs come around and all of your guys collectively are like, you know what? Let's play the worst game we played all year together. And then you lose. That's happened to me before too. I've gotten beat by like a 7 seed because all my guys forget what they were supposed to do that day. I don't like it. And it's hard. I don't manage sometimes. I get reminders. Thank God the app goes off. It's like, have you adjusted your lineup yet? And I'm like, I forgot I was playing fantasy football. Shit. Fuck. I got to go adjust this real fast.
But we did have some transaction. Did we talk about Brett Rippon?
Oh, no, we didn't touch on that. Yeah, Jaron Hall got picked up by the Seahawks because he was cut, and then we picked up Brett Ripien from Who did you play last?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Denver, I believe, right?
One of the teams, sure. Wherever he was from. The Vikings.
Oh, no, it was Denver, then Chicago, then Minnesota, I think, maybe.
Yeah, the Vikings thought...
he played us in the preseason, didn't he?
He might have.
I don't know. All I remember is that Christmas Day stuff between Rippon and Reisner, so that's all I know.
I wasn't joking. My short-term memory is gone.
No, Denver has Bo Nix, Jared Stidham, and they got Zach Wilson now. So that's cool.
But what's hilarious is Lewis Dean, after him being released, he said, "Okay, I'm gonna go visit the Jets," and then he said, "Nope," to the Jets, and ended up going to Buffalo. Those silly Jets always getting screwed over by Vikings.
That's hilarious. Anthony Barr, Kirk Cousins. That's hilarious, man. I'm happy that Lewis Dean is going to get another chance. We kind of figured that, and we wish the best to Jaron Hall.
So Minnesota's going to have Myles Gaskin as a return man this year, but right now he is currently on the practice squad. So as I wrote over on the Viking Age, I think that when they elevate Myles Gaskin to 53, they're going to use that on the practice squad to grab some young quarterback prospect to throw on the practice squad.
I wonder what Mike Zimmer's quote about releasing Jaron Hall would be. He'd have something salty to say. Why do you guys move on from Jaron Hall, Mike Zimmer? I see him in practice every day. He's terrible.
I thought Hall did better than he did when I was writing out Hall's stats as a Minnesota Viking. I was like, boy, that's not great.
That's what I said in a couple of Instagram comments. I'm not taking shots at Jaron Hall. I just said, oh, well, here comes all the Jaron Hall stands and all the defenders. And they're like, he played so much better. And I'm like, against the third string. Of course he did. Of course he played great against people who don't start in football games. Did you see what happened
going all in on McCarthy? Hall doesn't really have a place on this roster at the moment.
Yeah.
They're better off bringing in a veteran or a player that's been around longer, has more experience like Rippon to be able to
right.
JJ McCarthy and help.
You're not bothering to develop a backup quarterback at the same time you're developing your starting quarterback. You bring in veteran talent to put around him, and even though he's on IR, he's still going to be in the building at meetings, I presume. So yeah, you load up with veteran talent so that he.
Now I wouldn't mind a young guy in the practice squad. That would be fine.
Yeah.
It's all the same. Like there's so many tiers, and when you get to that level of like backup fringe starter, like you could just pick a random name. I think they saw, and this is just what I assume the Vikings saw is, okay, Jaron Hall is like quarterback 3, probably at best, maybe practice squad dude. Brett Rippey could actually make the team. It's like, overall, what do you give the rating? Well, I give Jaron Hall a 50, and I give Brett Rippon a 55. Are they that far apart? Probably not. But one maybe is slightly higher floor than the other. I don't know what the ceiling for either one of them
I also
is.
don't know how these guys are like in practice or in meetings. That could be a lot too about what these guys have to offer a team.
You mentioned that in our chat. That's a good point, Adam. But that's how Sean Mannion kept a job for however many years here. Like apparently he was a great coach and he helped Kirk.
Because for a long time I would do like that thing where, okay, is this change an upgrade on the field? And that was the only thing I was concerned about. But the more I learned about football, the more like team chemistry, and locker room presence and that kind of stuff kind of came in and showed me how important that can be.
Yeah. I get it. I wish that Sean Mannion wasn't on the team and he was a coach and not a player, but that's not my business.
Yeah, you probably could have saved a roster spot and some money by doing that.
And upgraded tremendously at a very important position. But who am I? I'm just a fan,
Right.
Oh, I told you, I remember it all. I hate that I do. I hate it so much.
Well, that's all I've got for this week. Do you guys got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that'll do it.
Vikings football on Sunday. We will be back to report on it, hopefully Monday, and talk about our thoughts. And we can get back to some of the traditions around here with game balls and donkeys and just talk actual football. God, it feels like forever since we've done that. So
I think at first we were intending not to have a show this week, and then all this stuff started happening. You can't skip
That
this.
Zimmer article came out, and I was like, guess what, boys? We got to talk about this one.
That Zimmer, those are some of my favorite quotes ever. I love
You know
that
what,
so
Kyle?
much.
I will go in on this with you. Adam, if you want one too, we'll do it just for us. We will pick out our favorite quotes, and we will get them on a T-shirt from your Red Bull, and we'll
Yes.
just wear them randomly on the show, and I'll make sure we do that because, God, that's so funny. Some of those are so brutal. So brutal. We'll just wear Zimmer quotes on the show randomly.
I love it.
I
Yeah,
still have my I
I'm
Believe in
down.
Zim shirt that I bought a long time ago.
Oh, that's a classic now. You should wear that. If you were going to the game Sunday, I would be like, hey, that's the one you should wear to the game. That would be great.
I mean, it's not like I believe in Les Steckel or something. Like Zimmer did fairly well as a coach when he was, doing his thing.
Hey, don't sleep on it. I tell people that all the time. Love him or hate him, he could have he could have coached another season with the Vikings and went 0-17, and he still would have finished with a 500 record. So
I remember when he wanted to fight, who the hell was that?
Kirk.
Sean Payton after the game.
He wanted to. I don't remember if it was the.
I thought you were going to say Chris Thomason.
Yeah, that too.
I remember. I know Nick Foles was quarterback in the Rams at that time. I don't know if they were in LA yet or if it was still St. Louis, and I don't remember who the coach was. But some corner took Teddy's head off, and I thought he was going to go scrap with the corner that took his head off that game.
Zimmer low-key have some really great moments with the Vikings. You know that? Love him or hate him.
Entertaining ones. Yeah.
I'll take his tenure.
Match where they're like yelling at each other. I'm like, bro, you can't fight him right now. The game's almost over. You got to go shake the other coach's hand. What are you doing?
I don't know. I'll take him over Brad Childress.
Well, that's all we have for this week. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on chat. It's great to have you guys here. We love the interaction, and we hope that we can keep this going. You can check us out. The full catalog of videos is over on YouTube. Otherwise, you can probably find like the last 3 or 4 shows, wherever podcasts are found. We spread this thing all over the place. We ain't shy about it. You can check out my work over on the Viking Age and all my social media stuff over at MN Viking Zombie. If there's a social media there, I'm probably there, and you can probably find me there.
Nice.
You can check me out at Vaguely Square over on Blue Sky. That is my social media platform of choice. I am going to be posting some more photography up on that one and also get some photos up on my website. Probably get an actual domain name bought here soon too. That's my goals for the month. Right now, you can check me out at KyleWest84.Pickfair. That's PICFAIR.com. That's where I've got some of my work right now. Eventually, I will have all of my work in one spot, and wouldn't that be fine and dandy?
We can put a fancy QR code up here, and then you can just promote it there, and people can add it, and then it'll be.
I've been reading about how boomers love QR codes. Are you a boomer?
I think when you say QR code, I think of restaurants because of what happened with COVID, and I am all for the traditional hold it in your hand menu.
I love that holding in the hand menu.
Yeah,
I need the physical menu. Now, for other things, possibly. But when we're talking, that's the first thing that pops into mind. I would really like a physical menu because there's something about that. It kind of wraps up the experience. It enhances it for me.
I don't think Smith's going to promote anything of his own here.
Yeah, I got it. You can find me at NC Dog Dude. I'm excited. This is a new microphone I'm trying out. I love this thing. I just, for the first time ever in my life last night, tested out my new interface and microphone with my Logic Pro software, and I recorded guitar through this microphone, and it sounded amazing and crisp. So the recording process is about to officially start. I've been talking about it for months, but the equipment's up. It's running. So it's just a matter of time now. Pumped about my TikTok too. I did a cover of a band called Egypt Central recently, and they reposted it today, and that was really cool of them. It's really nice when the original artist doesn't think that you butchered their song, so that's on there.
Yeah.
I could see Smith doing the ASMR thing.
Thank you very much, Adam.
You gotta do the little taps and stuff. I can't do those videos. I don't know why. They just bother me.
I can't. They make me super uncomfortable. Super uncomfortable. But that's some people like that. That's good. Good for y'all.
But we'll be back next week. We'll have our game balls and donkeys for the game against the Giants, and we'll talk about all that and whatever else happens. So hopefully we'll have you guys back here next week. In the meantime, stay classy, man.